Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Teresa Winter. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Donald Kelway Storrie, whose story will be told shortly. We're also honoured to acknowledge Mr Gordon Ramsay, ACT Minister for Seniors and Veterans, Vice Admiral Michael Noonan, Chief of Navy, Air Marshal Mel Hupfield, Chief of Air Force, and members of the ACT RANS Association. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record of those that made themselves. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Donald Kelway Storrie. Donald Storrie and his twin sister Merle were born on the 20th of January 1920 to Sydney and Myrtle Storrie of Sassafras, Victoria. Don, Merle and their older sister Alva grew up in the Dandenong Ranges, where they attended the local public school. Their property, Monreal, was run as a holiday accommodation by their mother and was described as being right amongst the wattle and ferns. Following his education, Don undertook an apprenticeship as a fitter and turner with John Sharp & Sons in South Melbourne. He was described as a sober, honest and respectable man. Don Storrie enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force within months of completing his apprenticeship in 1940. Acceptance into the Air Force was somewhat competitive at the time, but his good character and experience as a fitter and turner saw him quickly accepted as a fitter. He underwent a period of training, passing his exams with the remark, "sound and competent," from his training officers. Leading aircraftman Don Storrie underwent a series of postings in Australia, each as ground staff at various bases. From May 1941 until the following February, he served at No. 2 Service Flying Training School in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. From there, he had a brief spell in Melbourne before being sent to the Northern Territory in April 1942, where he served at Darwin, Pell, Batchelor and Burdham. In April 1943, Storrie returned to Melbourne and a posting at No. 1 Aircraft Depot, Laverton. He returned to Wagga Wagga that same year to marry Alma Crichton on the 11th of September. His twin sister Merle was one of the bridesmaids in what was reported to be a beautiful wedding. Before returning to duty, Storrie was able to take his new bride to Palm Beach for a honeymoon. In February 1944, Storrie was sent to No. 3 Operational Training Unit in Rathmines, New South Wales. He trained as a flight engineer. There he undertook 91 hours flight time as part of his training. Having passed the course, he was sent to Queensland and joined No. 20 Squadron of the Royal Australian Air Force. In September 1944, No. 20 Squadron moved to Darwin in the Northern Territory. The squadron flew Catalinas and were primarily engaged in laying mines in the north of Australia. Sergeant Storrie flew 18 missions in his time with the squadron. On the 1st of March 1945, Sergeant Storrie was flight engineer on Catalina A24-203, which left Darwin bound for Ginnemock Island. Arriving on the island safely, it left on the 7th of March for Lingayen Gulf, where it refueled before taking off again almost immediately on an operational flight to lay mines in the South China Sea. It was never heard from again. Searches were conducted in the area around southeast Formosa, known today as Taiwan, but no trace of the aircraft or its crew members were found. Sergeant Donald Storrie and his crewmates were presumed to have been killed in action on the 7th of March 1945. Donald Storrie's body has never been recovered, and today he is commemorated on the Labuan Memorial in Malaysia. He was 25 years old. Sergeant Donald Storrie has been fondly remembered by his family in the years since his death, particularly his twin sister Merle, who is with us today. She and Donald are celebrating their 100th birthday today. Donald's sisters also served during the Second World War, Merle in the Women's Royal Australian Naval Service and Alva in the Australian Army Nursing Service. Donald Storrie's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Donald Kelway Storrie, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the ode, sounding of the last post.
They shall grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.